Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik from Figured Out Productions. The following video is a video of some kind, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hey guys, it's Adam here, and today we're going to be talking about this. This is a brand new Sega Dreamcast game called Finding Teddy. Well, not super brand new, it came out like a couple months ago at this time, but you have to understand I'm very backlogged, and there's a whole bunch of new Dreamcast games that are also out that I'm going to be doing videos on, but I'm hoping to get them out before the Dreamcast 20th anniversary comes up, or at least the North American anniversary, because obviously the Japanese one already happened. Anyway, so I guess you're like, wait, new Dreamcast game, what was that? Yes, the Sega Dreamcast, my favorite video game console of all time, still gets brand new games every once in a while. However, they don't come from Sega, and they don't come from other major developers and publishers that you likely would have heard of. They come from indie developers and indie publishers. Now, traditionally, historically, there's been two methods for this. Either a group or an individual will be super passionate about that console and be like, I have a game, I want to make a game, I want to put it on the Dreamcast, and that's like, I'm excited to do that, just to share my game with the history of that console, and that's usually their motivation. Or obviously there's some financial incentive because they want to sell it too, but like that's the reason they choose the Dreamcast. Or a lot of times a game will be made and they'll put it on every platform under the sun, and that includes the Dreamcast, and we just, as the Dreamcast community, just kind of benefit from it, and we just get the nice windfall of that game's release. This game, along with everything from JoshProd, which is the guy who's doing this, or his name isn't Josh, by the way, but that's the name of his company, this guy is unique. And I've said this before in videos on his games. He doesn't follow either of those models. He has his own. And what he basically does in a lot of instances is he goes around, he finds a game he likes, he buys it, and ports it over to the Dreamcast. It's a very strange model for such a retro console. And in case you're curious, like, you know, why the Dreamcast? Why does that keep happening? Well, one of the things that's interesting about the Dreamcast is one of the things that hurt it in its lifetime, which was the mill CD exploit, basically the ability to play pirated content, is the thing that keeps it alive now, because it can read unsigned code. Therefore, people can build their own games for it and have them run right on the console, which is impressive. Now, I've done entire videos on that. We're not going to go into it, but that's basically the short version. So, JoshProd, in his latest release here with Finding Teddy, granted he's had more since then, and he actually has a new one coming up as a Kickstarter for it. I'll put a link in the description if you want to check it out. It's like a love letter to Sega arcade racing games with all sorts of stuff in there. I'll put a link in the description. It looks pretty cool. But in his case, the specific story with Finding Teddy is that he saw it. It was a game that was out on Steam. It sold over 100,000 copies. He liked it. He bought the license to it, ported it over to the Dreamcast, and he's like, all right, now it's on Dreamcast. Props, man. Like, not too many people would do that. In fact, no one else has done that. So it's impressive that you keep doing it that way. Most of his releases are like that. Even some infamous ones, like the game Flashback, which was like a big game in the late 80s, early 90s. He straight up bought the rights to that game and then ported it to the Dreamcast. Like, it's insane, but in an awesome way. Yeah, and he's done some deals with companies like Visco, which is a company that made a lot of Neo Geo CD games, and he brought their stuff over to the Dreamcast. I think he's doing more. It's awesome that this dude is like pumping so much content onto the Dreamcast. But Finding Teddy specifically, he also told me they're looking forward to making the sequel to this. It's called the Chronicles of Teddy. I believe it already exists, but he wants to put it on Dreamcast, hopefully sometime in 2020. But the description of this game: a little girl was sleeping peacefully with her teddy bear when suddenly a monster popped out from her cupboard and then stole her favorite plush. It appears to be a platforming game, kind of like horror-looking-ish, kind of inspired. I mean, without having played it, and we will do that, it kind of looks a little like Limbo. I don't know if it actually plays like Limbo, but it'll be curious to see. Very nice design here. So, in case you're curious, these games are not like pirated things that are, you know, printed on a CDR and they use a Sharpie or anything. Like, these are made in a factory. They get nice artwork and everything. They get pressed discs like this. Looks fantastic. Very, very cool. And then they come with like a full color manual, which we'll take out here. Usually reversible. This one is the Japanese style, then you can reverse it to the North American style. There's also a PAL release of these traditionally, though I don't have those the ones he releases in Europe, and logically so. It looks like a pretty simple game. It's got very basic control system set up here. And then it just has some information about the design, and then it's got some other games that are options.
All right, we are rolling here. So, first and foremost, I was wrong. I thought this would be a 2D platformer. It is not. It is a point-and-click adventure, which is fine. I have to admit up front, those are not typically my favorite types of games, though I will say the atmosphere of this one is pretty neat. And it's not like it's not intuitive or anything. It's actually, I find, to be a lot less frustrating than things like, say, Flashback or, you know, any of the other ones in that series, Another World, and so on and so forth. Clearly, JoshProd, Phil, he really has an affinity for these point-and-click adventure games, but I would hope, buddy, I know you're listening, can we get some more platformers? Please. Thank you. Anyway, so Finding Teddy. As far as the point-and-click adventure kind of games go, this one isn't too bad. I do like the art style a lot. And so you can go ahead and take a look at it. Now, basically the way it works is you just kind of have to click around the screen and navigate the character, and then you have to proceed on your adventure. And I'm sure a lot of you have played these type of games before, but in the event that you haven't, a lot of it is just obstacles in your way, and you have to find, you know, the thing to get out of the way. So, for example, this is our first obstacle, is this big dildo looking thing that just eats your ass. Look at that shit. This game ain't playing, man. Like, you are dead as shit now. But there is a solution to this problem, which you'll see in a second here. So rather than just try to get your way through there, because you can't do that, you have to always figure out what the puzzle is. So in this case, they set up, you know, as good games do, they just kind of explain to you without explaining to you what you have to do. So in this case, you have to pick up the piece of fruit. Now I wonder what you have to do with it, and I'm sure you've concluded you have to feed it to the giant dildo monster thing, which is exactly what we're about to go do. So then it, you know, this is again the tutorial type of thing where it's like, okay, see, you have a thing, use the thing on this thing, and there you go. Now that's pretty much how the game plays, except it's not always that simplistic. It's not always, okay, here's the problem and the answer is right next to it. You know, it gets more involved. So for the most part, what I intend to do here is I'm gonna throw out a couple other bits of information, and then I'll let you kind of just enjoy the gameplay as it goes. There's a huge music element to this game, as you can see right here, and you'll see a little bit more of a payoff to it. I have to admit, I am not good with music, like, at all. So having music-based puzzles, it's like, okay, that's like a kryptonite for me. So unfortunately, when the music-based puzzle gets too intense, that's kind of where I had to stop, because I was just like, I can't do this. But yeah, so a few other pointers before I leave you alone. One, in case anybody's curious, this game, like all independent games for the Dreamcast, are region free, so it doesn't matter if you have a PAL console, Japanese console, American console, it'll work on all of them. It'll work on all iterations of the Dreamcast except for the very late Model 2 revisions. About half of the Model 2 revisions will read games like this, but the very last batch will not. But that's very uncommon to find. The vast majority of Dreamcasts out there will play this game. To actually have a revision 2 that does not work is basically to win an unlucky lottery. It's very, very uncommon, so I wouldn't worry about it. If you want to check, though, at the bottom of your Dreamcast, there will be a 0, a 1, or a 2 in a circle. Almost all the time it'll be a 1. That's the normal, quote-unquote, revision 1 version. That'll work just fine. 0 will work fine. And even in most cases, a 2 will work. But in most instances, you're not going to have to worry about it. The other thing is that this game does support VGA. Which is how it's actually being displayed. It's nice. It runs in the higher resolution modes, which I'm really glad. That seems to be a consistent thing that all the indie games do, is they always put in the high resolution VGA code. That way you can enjoy it that way. I also attached the M cable to it to, you know, buff it out and clean it up a little more. Although in this particular game, it's obviously a 2D game and is very pixelized, so it doesn't change it a whole lot, but it's still there, and it still improves the color depth and things like that, so that's good. And then the other thing is, I recorded this with, in case anyone's curious, I recorded this with the AverMedia Live Gamer Mini, which is probably the way I'll be recording stuff now, as my older setup seems to be dying on me. I used to be using a Hauppauge HD PVR, but it's just kind of taken a shit a lot lately. So I'm going to start switching over, I think. But anyway, so yeah, that's about it for now. I will get back to you towards the end of the video and just enjoy the rest of the gameplay. Alright, we are narrowing down to the end of the gameplay here. So you saw it, obviously there's a whole lot of puzzle elements to this where you just go around and have to figure all that stuff out. Now I did cut out certain sections when I was like totally confused. I wasn't like amazing at this or anything. I just for your sake, to shorten the footage so you guys could get the widest sample of content, I just cut down a whole bunch of stuff frankly until I got to basically this part, because it's all music stuff, and I'm just, like I said, that's my kryptonite, man. I can't do anything with music-based puzzles, and believe me, I tried. So you basically give this dude the feather, and then he sings a song, and I tried recreating the song, and it didn't seem to do anything, and like, I don't know, I just didn't know what I was doing. But anyway, I think that gives you a sense of the game. Thank you very much to JoshProd for creating this. Of course, I should have mentioned this at the very beginning. If you're interested in this game or any of the other independent Dreamcast games, check out Videogames New York. I'll put a link in the description. You can buy them there. There's a whole lot of them. You should always check that out and see which ones are available. It's pretty cool. He's like an exclusive distributor for all these new games. It's really very sweet. So that'll about do it. If you guys could do me a solid, hit the like, subscribe button. I really appreciate that. I hate asking, but it's just what YouTube requires me to do. Thank you very much for watching, everybody, and I'll see you all later.